enough, it's time to talk about what I did to see if this saw can get better performance sooner. Guys, is this a placebo effect? Am I getting tricked? What's happening? Welcome to the Okie Woodsman channel, and have I got a show for you. Could this just be the most important video you ever see for your brand new 500i? On my video where I ran the 500i for the very first time, many people were saying things like 10 tanks, 15 tanks, 20 tanks, 10 gallons, 5 gallons, all sorts of things in order to get their 500i in tip-top peak performance. I always thought it was kind of crazy when Echoes took 10, 15, 20 tanks in the comment section. People mostly talk about 10 tanks. I always thought that was an excessive break-in period, and while it's true that an engine's performance is going to continually increase until it levels off and then starts declining over time, I thought the concept of a 10 tank light switch, or in this circumstance, a 10 or 15 tank light switch, is shocking. We're going to be using my 25 horsepower Coyote tractor, this wonderful Stinger attachment. I thought about removing these plates, but after I got here, I realized that I'm glad I didn't. We'll be utilizing the 500i, and as you all know, I do not have a way of transporting my tractor, so I was able to drive my tractor to this job. And this is pretty cool because a person in the local community paid a tree service to come and remove a healthy white oak tree, and then they piled it all up in one pile. This would likely sit here for a long time because it was going to have to dry it out and then light it on fire and then probably burn on it numerous times, because big chunks of white oak like that are not going to go easily. Let's go ahead and reduce this pile significantly by pulling out all usable white oak firewood, and boy am I excited to do so. You've waited long enough. It's time to talk about what I did to see if this saw can get better performance sooner. The first time I put this saw in wood, I was running a 32-inch full comp brand new STIHL RS chain. It was a very dry, dead bit of white oak, and because of that, the saw just didn't seem like it performed all that well. I believe there are a few factors why that saw didn't show very well, and this saw has been run more tanks since then, and it seems like it is increasing in performance. I think that the 32-inch STIHL RS chain may have been less than optimal. I've never been one to subscribe that a brand new chain is dull. I think that they're still very good and serviceable outside of the box. In fact, I have a video about does the chain matter coming out. I haven't edited it yet, but I have looked at some of the results, and I think you'll be shocked on that video too. The other variable is that this saw certainly does need some time to break in, like all saws do. I recently saw a video where Mitch Zanobi was talking about problems or idiosyncrasies of a 500i, and one of those things was that being of fuel.
And I've been buying 92 octane. For an experiment, I'm like, all right, I'm going to try 87, because I've had great success with other 87 octanes. Kind of having that limp mode issue. It wouldn't run right. It'd smoke a lot. And I run about 44-1. Loves the 92 from there. Doesn't have a problem. Possibly dealing with limp mode issues of your 500. Just might be the grade of gas, not exactly the station. But Shinobi out.
All right, so in the comment section, it's littered with people sharing their experience saying, yeah, my saw would kind of go into like a limp mode unless it really liked the fuel. Inside of the STIHL owner's manual, it does recommend 89 octane. Admittedly, that last batch of fuel that operates perfectly well in all of my other equipment that I've ran it through, including my Husqvarna auto-tune saws, was non-ethanol fuel, but I really do not know the octane rating. It very well could have been 87, but it could have been premium. I believe that batch of fuel came from a station that only sells non-ethanol, and when that's the case, I will sometimes use 87 because outdoor power equipment generally doesn't mind it. This 500i could be different. That fuel is private label, and I don't believe it to be top tier, and so what I did is I went to Shell, got premium non-ethanol. Only one pump does that, and the 2 grades below it do have ethanol in it. So what I did is I pumped 2 gallons of premium non-ethanol at a higher price into my pickup truck. Then I filled up my mix jug, for this to make sure I do not have any ethanol or lower grade fuel in my can. I have not pumped the purge bulb because I do not want to cycle any of that fuel into that tank, and I do understand that it would be so diluted it likely wouldn't matter, but for the sake of this testing I figured it would just be better. And another thing is I want to test this saw without using the purge bulb at all, because there are some people that claim you don't need to purge it and the saw starts better. Let's get started. Out of all the cool accessories I have on this tractor, I gotta say I like the saw haul up front because that protects the saw and makes it super feasible to transport it, but this bucket haul is absolutely awesome. When I'm coming to film, I put things like water in there, camera equipment, and my safety equipment. There's an extra chain in here, scrunch, and some other various items. Let's see if this saw is happy with no purging. Let's count pulls. 1, 2. If I would have purged it, probably would have done better. We're gonna have to see if it changes a little bit. I won't bring you on for all of this, but this is my plan, is to grab a log that I can in the grapple and then pinch something else in my backhoe so that way I can reduce the amount of trips I need to make. My wood yard is starting to look a bit more like a wood yard, and it's becoming clear that if I want to continue to bring wood in here and not have to stack it on top of everything, I'm going to need to open up some more space. That one's going to be next. But you're not here to hear about my wood yard. You want to see if this 500i seems to be running better. I thought I was going to be able to run it a little bit more down in that brush pile, but the tree guys had it all pretty well cut up and everything was manageable with the exception of that one log. This thing hasn't run in a while. We made that single buck down there at the job. Let's see what happens when we pull this over. It's been probably about an hour and a half. I'm gonna have to look at footage on another video, but there's a couple variables going on here. We're on a different chain, but the other chain was filed and set to softwood as well, just like this. The other one was 063, this is 050 because I switched to my light bar. But then the other variable is this is greener wood versus the other stuff that was rock solid dead. But I am seriously wondering if this saw feels better. It sounds better. I'll put some other footage in the video so we can kind of compare it. I don't know what to think. I feel as if this saw is stronger. Honestly, I've mentioned that this saw felt kind of like a 661 from what I've ran in the past. And this saw now feels power-wise to like what I ran in a 661 at work a few years back. So if that's the case, a saw with this package weight is absolutely phenomenal. I want my waist to be in the flare, so I'm gonna start cutting from left to right on this one. These are large enough rounds that I really wanna make sure I take time because, you know, even if you get off crooked, you're gonna lose an inch on the other side. Perfect. So I'm gonna have quite a bit of this flare come off. Let's just say that this saw went from a saw you could kind of comfortably remove this hand from just to reposition to a saw that you no longer want to do that. Guys, is this a placebo effect? Am I getting tricked? What's happening? Of course, any chainsaw you can get yourself in trouble with, but with the way this is running right now, and the way I have the chain filed, you can easily get yourself in trouble. I'm needing to think about some of the basics. It's easy to get complacent, right? And right now, this saw seems to be running very well. Well, through my earmuffs, I feel like I'm hearing more RPM than I've ever heard before. Share your thoughts. I forgot there's one more variable. On that very first time I ran this saw, the oiler wasn't wide open because there's a stupid little pin you gotta depress. And once you do it, it's done. But my oiler's turned all the way up. And that's how I run all my saws. I don't care if I lose a little bit of oil because I'm running a shorter bar. This saw will only have probably a 24-inch bar on it or greater. I feel like I gotta be getting close to empty on the fuel. Oh yeah. Yeah. The fuel filter is just barely sitting in a puddle. I can just see now all the comments flowing in about my excellent Gramp stick. These are from Russ Willie and Derek stuff. They have like a collaboration. It says a little bit every day goes a long way. It says my name on it. It says Gramps stick and Willie's Firewood. It's got my logo on it. It's painted to match my split fire. I think that's pretty darn cool. I think there's a good possibility that if you're new here, you're wondering why I'm measuring with a stick. And the reality is it's because I want to. I just want my rounds to be as close to as 16 inches as possible. Some of my skill in terms of making sure I cut each round completely square, it's lacking sometimes. But why also add that variable in as well? On another video I showed that I can just go ahead and buck, and I was within a half of an inch just eyeballing it. Let's just see how close I was to 16 without marking it. A lot of people tell me, like, if you have to mark your wood, then you ain't no good for cutting firewood, but this is the deal. Like, I mean, I can eyeball it, get close, I think. So that's an inch off, and that's a half inch off right there. That's not a big deal, and I don't mind it. And plus, I can also work around my knots because I don't really want the knotty wood in my firewood. The only reason why that's the case is because I do not make a living selling firewood. It's a side hustle. I want my stacks to be pretty. We don't have boilers out here. Stuff isn't worth a fortune because we're in Oklahoma. What I like to do is I like to bundle wood as much as possible, and when I stack it on a rick or in a tote, I just want it to stack better. That's it. My goodness, where do I start? I'm going to say something bold. I think that this saw is sufficiently powerful stock after today. I find that we can't definitively say that it was the fuel that did it, but I am 90% certain it was the fuel that did it. We're now burning through our about 6th tank, and there's a lot of variables that have changed. A lot of people in the comments section have said that after 10, this thing is an absolute beast. Some of them have even said more than that. One guy said that between 4 and 5 fill-ups of fuel is 1 gallon. I haven't checked the math on that, but man, 4 to 5 fill-ups, a gallon of fuel. Huh. Anyway, this saw right here, I think, is running fantastic. Of course, this is green white oak, and so it has much higher moisture content in it. It's cutting very nicely. It's far less dusty than the other stuff I had been cutting with it. But I do want to notice one thing, and I think that the thing that shows that it's up on power is the fact that when I touch the dog onto the log, it doesn't want to stop the saw immediately. It digs in harder and wants more. There was a couple times that I did stop the saw, and I would do that honestly when I ran a 661. I could stop the saw. It was not a saw that it took a lot of effort to stop. This thing here is running a Hungrier raker in hardwood, and so I am extremely impressed with how this is operating. It is kind of wearing me out a hair because my arms, it's pulling against my arms. I generally, because I run Huskies and they love high RPM and they eat really fast that way. The fastest way you can run a Husky is by letting the saw eat and not too much at a time, because those RPMs are your friend. Oh, and there's something else that has to be addressed. This chain will be seen in a chain test video where I ran it on my 562 XP, and in reality, if I remember correctly, it only did slightly better than a stock Oregon chain in one cut. And I did a down up in pine and a down up in oak. I want to say that the down cut in the pine was where it marginally did better, and that video has some surprises in it. I'm looking forward to seeing that video will probably come out before this one, but I'm looking forward to see what all the people in the comments say. I have a suspicion, I'm gonna call this like prophetic, but I'm gonna leave this out specifically in the video because I have a suspicion that a lot of people are gonna say what this video tells us is you're no good at hand filing. So let's see how many people say that in that video. I think personally that the 60cc saw didn't have enough for a low raker, and this is set to the softwood setting on the Husqvarna gauge. And so I think that this saw was fine with it, but I wouldn't mind it being between soft and hardwood. I think that it would have cut a little bit better, and I would, well, let's just put it this way. I'm okay being done right now. I really am. I need to get in a little bit better shape. This saw is an absolute pleasure to run with this 24-inch light bar. This saw is running absolutely fantastic. I'm ready to say that I'm pretty confident that the fuel made a bigger difference than runtime. I think that maybe there's an intersection of runtime and fuel change, but this saw just seems snappier. I think I'm going to go back to hitting that purge bulb I saw in the comment section. Now, I think the one commenter, Davies Logging, I think his saw is reported, so it could change it a little bit. I want to say that he doesn't purge the saw, and it runs better than when you purge it. But being that this saw is stock, I think I'm going to just basically hit that button. It's no big deal. The saw has always started fantastically. This is a saw where I personally do not need the decomp. It's got compression and it may increase more, but it's not a hard saw to start. While I was running it, something came to my mind, and it is safety related. This is not the saw you want to get if you're proficient with like a 30cc saw or like an MS250. That's all you've ever cut with, and you have an itch to get something more powerful. This is not what you want. And I also am going to disagree with someone that really I actually hold responsible for everything that I'm doing here. You see, I started watching Buck and Billy Ray probably, I don't know, 8 or 9 years ago. At that time, I had never ran a chainsaw at all. I was a guy that had climbed poles in utilities. I started getting interested in arborist type work, climbing, because I could see the relationship between climbing and climbing poles. And I have dabbled in that, and I want to learn more about it. But Buck and Billy Ray, I really, really enjoy his content. I enjoy the man. I enjoy his message for the most part. But again, he inspired me. I had a very good job, and in fact, I loved my job, but he always talked about, like, you know, get outside, and he was basically just saying, like, take control of your destiny, if you will. And that's part of the message that I don't really exactly agree with, because I also believe in a spiritual God ordained type thing as well. Because I am a Christian, I believe that God is directing and guiding my steps. However, I think that he is allowing me to see the benefits of the fruits of my labor. I really do, because let's just put it this way. We have a tremendous following, and I need to be thankful to him. And I also want to say thank you to you guys. So, but how I disagree with Buckin is, you know, the man is a long bar guy. and I like long bars as well. You'll notice that this is a full wrap saw. This is a pain in the neck here in Oklahoma with our trees. I know, and I knew better when I purchased it. The biggest thing I disagree with to him is him, like, he's famous for not wanting anything to do with like anything lower than 70 cc's until he got a 562. And in all fairness, that 562 is a fantastic 60 cc saw. And again, please understand, I'm saying this with all the respect I can give, because I do respect his experience and his input. I really do. But the 562 is an extremely modern saw, and it cuts outside of its league. You know, if you compared it to a 362 from years ago, basically the 562 stomps it. And so, you know, for his purposes and his wood, that 60 cc works well. But a thing that he likes to talk about besides long bar is he's got no purpose for a 20-inch bar on like a 50 cc saw. It is my opinion that you have no business starting off in wood like what I've got around here and dealing with trees and blowdowns if you're on a property like I am. I don't believe that you have any business running a 70 plus cc or even like a 90 cc saw without working your way up from like an MS 170 to like something like a 620 or a 562. Really, I think there needs to be a progression. This saw is not one that you jump from an MS 170. Honestly, this is way different. Now, and I didn't have this type of concern before. I really didn't have this type of concern. And so when Buckin talks about a long bar standing up and bucking and, you know, 70 cc is where it's at, I absolutely agree based on my experience and my knowledge now that 70 cc for this size wood is perfect. But, this is 80, but it runs like a very, very strong 70. And I'm just going to say, you know, get yourself a good pro 50 cc saw before you jump into 70. You know, a 572 is powerful. A 462, from what I've seen, looks extremely powerful. And build up your skill set and knowledge. This is just from my perspective and a safety aspect to the whole thing of running a saw. I believe that this is more powerful than the ported 660 clone I had. I feel as if it's running better. Again, it could be a placebo. It's been a while since I've ran something like that. I think that this is stronger than my 395. I do. Now, my 395 was considered a dog by Matt at Boys in the Woods, but this is a much more usable saw. And as of right now, this thing's a very, very strong stock saw. It just really is. My mind is kind of wrapping around the videos I've made, kind of wrapping around my opinions, things that I've heard. I've heard a lot of people say that these things are lackluster. One guy even said in the comment section, he said, the 500i is a joke because it feels in your hands just as heavy as a 592. I told him I respectfully disagree, or I think I just told him you're wrong, because this saw does not feel like a 90 cc saw. 592, I believe, is comparable in weight to a 661. And this is nowhere, this doesn't feel at all like that. Maybe if you're a ginormous man, but I'm not a ginormous man. This thing is compact and tight. And honestly, as I was playing with it earlier, I was, you know, I was fueling it up. I had the bar off and I had the power head, and I'm like, gosh dang, this thing is light. I mean, and that's with all this extra stuff that I really honestly don't need. I do want the dogs. I do like them because, well, I know they get in the way, and I know I don't really need them for the bark here, but I like the dual dog setup. If there was like a mid-sized dog that I could mount on both sides, I would be totally up for that. The ones on my 7310, I would say, are really perfect. But I didn't want the single small dog on the inside. Again, they would have been sufficient, but I like keeping the case of the saw away from the wood a little bit more. But again, these are a bit excessive. Guys, I hope that this video makes some sort of sense. I truly do believe that this saw has woken up, and I don't think it had to do with braking. I think it had to do with fuel. That's just my perspective. Let's look and see how this air cleaner looks after that tank of fuel. A lot of people really don't like these 500i air cleaners, and I'm just gonna keep it stuck because I want to see what it does. I did tap this thing out beforehand. So we've got a little bit of chips in the pleats. That's not a big deal. Let's do a gentle removal of the cleaner here and just take a look at, remember, the only thing that matters is right in here. All this is going to be dirty. That looks good and clean in there to me. I could see if this little foam ring gets compressed, I could see that being an issue. I would run this again without cleaning that. What a lovely saw. I'm really wondering about that 564 XP. I really am. Thank you for watching the Okie Woodsman channel, and we will see you on the next one.